Viewers, hi, welcome again to Against All Odds. I am your host, Sylvia Akwaboah, and today I am very excited. I have my dear friend here with us, Sujata Din. Sujata is a health coach, and you guys know I bring you the very best. She is my health coach as well. And whenever you guys know and see that I am doing great and I'm looking my best, it is because I am doing everything she tells me to. And when it's the other way is true. So I bring you what I feel is best. So welcome, Sujata, to the Against All Odds family.
Oh, thank you, Sylvia. I feel so honored to be here with you.
It's great to have you. It's great to have you, and hopefully, I'm so excited that everyone will at least have an inch of your knowledge, a little bit, and I know it will go a long way. So, let's get cracking. What was it that got you into this area, or what made you decide that you would be a health coach?
So I'm actually not a health coach from the beginning, and I just want to share a little bit of background. So I'm a qualified chartered accountant. This has been such a big change from what I used to do. And the reason I made the change was because my own health deteriorated. I got to a point, Sylvia, where, we all begin to think we're fine, I'm healthy, but the body is giving us some slight signals, some slight symptoms that it's gone out of balance, and I was just ignoring them. And it had started in my 20s, and maybe even before that, the signs were always there, but I just thought, I'm fine, it's nothing serious, I'll let it be. And so I qualified as an accountant. I had my 2 children. There's a very short age gap between them. And, and I thought, I'm fine. But it all began to catch up at some point for me, where I realized digestion was getting worse. I had always had digestive issues, and digestion is something so many of us are embarrassed to talk about. We don't want to be talking about being bloated or having lots of gas or being constipated or having diarrhea. And I struggled with many digestive issues, and it got to a point where it was definitely affecting my health. And then at the same time, I was having hormonal imbalances. I had just had my youngest son. I was around 30 years old, and I was having night sweats, extreme night sweats at the age of 30. So I'm far from menopause. And I was sweating so much that I needed to get up in the middle of the night, change my clothes. I used to sleep with a towel underneath me because it would soak the sweat in. And then it was. And then I'd have to turn the duvet over because it was again drenched. And it kept happening for weeks and months. And, seeing doctors, they couldn't quite identify what was happening, but it was a hormonal imbalance. And then I also had skin issues, acne often, not knowing, when I'm going to get it. Is it related again to the hormones? Is it related to stress, to what I'm eating? And then the crunch came for me when we moved to Singapore, and that's where we had the pleasure of meeting each other. So in Singapore, when living there, soon after moving there, I just found that I was constantly tired. I was getting sick. And it took some time for the doctors to diagnose that I had chronic sinusitis. But until that, I didn't know why I was always tired. There were no visible symptoms, and just feeling really, really unwell. And I did what everyone else does. When we feel unwell, I go onto the internet and I'll do a quick Google search. How do I improve my immunity? And I was searching for a supplement, or I would be looking for just something to help me get better, but nothing was helping me. And then I realized, I needed to make fundamental changes. And I think if it had just been me, again, I may have been tempted to ignore it, but at the same time, my youngest son was also unwell. He had upper respiratory infections often. He had eczema. And, we were always seeing doctors. We were on medication, whether it's antibiotics or steroids. And week in, week out, this was happening. And I just thought, what is wrong with me? I'm in my 30s. Why am I feeling sick all the time? Why don't I have the energy to walk? Even walking seemed like too much effort. And, I just thought I have to do something. So that's what really pushed me in thinking about improving my health. and I started reading. So first step was searching for things to buy to help me get better in that area. And then I started reading for things to boost my immunity. And it was literally trying to pick different things off the internet
Right.
and then trying to put them together. But again, it was a bit of this and a bit of that. And I was only doing what I wanted to do. So I decided to enroll and study nutrition, and I decided to become a health coach. I had never done biology, GCSE, so I knew nothing about anatomy and
Wow.
physiology. So I started from the beginning. I was really, really motivated to make a change. So I thought I'm going to study anatomy, physiology first, and then learn about health coaching. And it was never to work with it, but it was to improve my health and that of my youngest son. And I think my youngest son, he couldn't go out to play at lunchtime. The doctors again were finding it difficult to explain why he has such severe eczema. So they thought it might be the sun in Singapore. It's too hot. And I just thought, he's 4 or 5 years old. How many years did he never play outdoors? He's a very active boy.
Yeah.
So the search began to really improve both our immunity, and I enrolled and have never looked back. And I think for me, it was a blessing in disguise because it made us make the changes. It was a real blessing.
Wow, wow, wow. And even I knew parts of the story. I didn't know this in much detail.
Yeah.
So your immune system was obviously compromised and you therefore had the health challenges. How important is it for everyone to make sure that their immune system is right?
I think our immunity is so important for us, but we don't often even think about immunity unless something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And if anybody's watching this today, please just take one thing from here. Please, if you just remember, don't wait for something to go wrong and then try and fix it. Just work always on your immune system. I think that was a mistake that I made. I waited for many things to, gather, and then it really hit me where I couldn't walk. I couldn't sleep easily because of the night sweat. So everything gathered. So our immunity, we take it for granted because it's working. Our body's always, fighting disease. It's helping to protect us, but we take it for granted. So our immunity is so important. Please do everything you can to look after yourselves.
Wow. So, Sujata, what are some of the ways that we can improve our immune system or make sure that it's strong? And it's so important now during this pandemic. And now we have the flu season. We have autumn, fall around the corner, which means that the flu season is also around the corner. What are some of the things that we can do to strengthen our immune system?
Okay, there are so many different things. Of course, the basic one, with COVID is wash your hands, wear a mask. Those are the basic ones. Follow the regulations in your own countries. But then in terms of like the foods that we're eating, they have a big impact on our immune system. Firstly, can I start with what not to do? Because people are often thinking, tell me what to do or tell me what supplements as well that I should be having, and I'll quickly just have this multivitamin. But can you just begin to think about, what you should try and reduce? I'm not saying avoid it altogether, but if you are having foods that are very processed, can you begin to just make some changes to these as well? So trying to cut down on sugar, trying to cut down on foods that are high in salt, high in fat as well. And then try and include more foods that have got, nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin A in them. Vitamin D is also important. Zinc is important. The antioxidants are important. But rather than thinking of it as what nutrients do I need, think about what foods you can make. And simple thing that, you can do wherever you're living is make a smoothie, for instance. You can just take some oranges, you can take some pineapple, put in a little bit of turmeric, put in some greens and put in some seeds and nuts, and just, either yogurt or coconut water or water, milk. Make yourself a nice smoothie and, get healthy just by making small changes. Could be as simple as just having a piece of fruit for a snack as well. So just small changes that we can be making in our diet as well. There's so many things. Salads you could be having as well, having something healthy for breakfast to start the day rather than having, something that's high in sugar, like a high sugar cereal. Why not just start the day by having a homemade granola instead? So many things that we can be doing for our immunity.
Great tips there, Sujata. And so for a lot of people, for a lot of us, the big thing is weight loss.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that we need to take into consideration when one decides to go on a weight loss journey?
So I work lots and lots with many people who want to lose weight, and one thing that there's so many things. So I'll keep saying one thing, but there'll be many things. You'll probably see. One of the most important things is maybe you decide you want to lose weight, but don't let weight be the only driving force for you, because when you are looking at your weight loss journey, there will be other things that are out of imbalance. So if you are looking at your weight loss, think about, where is my energy? Where is for instance, am I sleeping well? How's my skin? How am I feeling about myself from inside as well? Where's my self-confidence? How's my immunity? Am I constantly getting colds as well? So on the weight loss journey, don't think only about your weight, because if you think only about the weight, you get really stuck on the number on the scales. And when the scales do not change, you feel disheartened, and then you want to give up.
Yeah.
You used a really good word, Sylvia, because you're talking about a journey. Right? This is not a weight loss diet. It's not something that you do for 1 week or 1 month or 3 months. This is a lifelong journey, because it's our health. We have our health with us for the rest of our lives. So with our weight loss journey, we want to be thinking about improving our wellness from inside out. I would always say, try and think about more than one goal. So have many goals. Be very clear on what your why is, and make sure that your why is not just about looking good for Christmas that's going to be coming, or looking good because you've got your 40th or your 50th birthday that's coming.
Right.
Make sure that part of your why is also a long-term why, which might be wanting to age healthily. Many people think about, I want to live longer, but do you want to live longer and be living on lots of medication? Do you want to be restricted and not be able to move? So have part of your why as, I want to live longer, but I want to be active. I want to be able to do things with my family, with my children, my grandchildren. So have lots of whys. And also, as part of your weight loss journey, please don't do anything drastic. People decide to do such drastic things. You can only do something like that for a very short period of time.
Yes.
You can only say, I'm going to cut out these foods for a short period of time, because you want to eat the same meals as your family. And let's be practical, Sylvia. We don't have hours to spend cooking. So, if we are cooking one meal for the family, and then we are having this very restrictive diet food, it's not healthy either for us, and also as an example to our family. We want to be a good role model for our children, whether they are boys or girls. We want to be good role models for them and say, these are good foods that we're having.
Yeah.
So let's think about, the types of foods we're having, and not cut out foods, and let's eat our traditional foods as well. Let's not cut out on traditional foods, wherever you come from in the world. Having worked with people from different parts of the world, you should still be eating your traditional foods when on your weight loss journey. Don't decide to be eating grilled chicken and vegetables, because how long can we do that for, right?
Absolutely. And Sujata, that is one reason why I love you so much. The day you said, I don't have to stop eating jollof rice.
Because I like jollof rice. That's why.
I don't have to stop eating my Ghanaian foods. That was it. I'm like, yep, she's a keeper. She's a keeper.
But it's so important, is it? Because if you can't eat jollof rice, that means you can't share your traditional foods with your family, and then you just feel restricted and limited in what you're having as well. So jollof rice is healthy. It's just the portions of it that we had to look at. But it's such a healthy thing. And what I liked, Sylvia, was because we talked about jollof rice, is you then created jollof quinoa.
Yes.
Yeah, come on.
Yes.
So we got creative when we were doing the coaching. You got really creative, and you thought, well, okay, quinoa is healthy for me, and because it's not just the rice, it's the flavors of the jollof, the tomatoes and the herbs, and it's so you use those same flavors to make quinoa, and now you have this amazing creation of yours.
Yes, quinoa jollof. Made by Sylvia.
Yeah. It's got to
Awesome.
be fun. I think that the weight loss journey's got to be a fun one, not something that you think, oh, I've got to get up and do that diet again. It's got to be something you love doing.
Yeah, and that is so important that, a lot of the time people feel that, I can't even start it. It's too much, you
Yeah,
don't eat this and you can't eat that and you can't
yeah,
drink this and you can't drink that. But I think you're bringing it home. And I don't know if you have anything more to say about that. People that feel like they see their friends and they're too restrictive, maybe they have 2 teaspoons of 2 tablespoons of rice. I know some diets, that's what they
mm,
have to do, or
yeah,
they cannot eat carbohydrates at all.
yeah.
So people then feel like, oh, it's too much.
And I think that's the thing with carbohydrates. We don't need to stop eating carbohydrates. And I think we're talking about grains because vegetables, of course, also have carbohydrates in them. But people sometimes think, I should just cut out the grains and then I'm going to lose weight. Yeah, you lose weight pretty quickly. But how long? Like maybe after a few months when you have your rice or your pasta or your wraps or whatever, your bread, the
Yeah.
weight will come back on. So you don't need to stop having the grains to lose the weight. You just need to think of, okay, how am I preparing my plate? And I can still have whole grains. I think the emphasis should be on the better quality grains. So having brown rice instead of white rice. And it should be done gradually.
Yeah.
What I share is what I've done at home with my own family, with my children. So, it wasn't you have to have brown rice. And the same thing is what I do with my clients and people I work with, is saying, if you don't like the taste of brown rice, mix the white and the brown. And then when you get used to a little bit of brown, increase the brown by a little bit more. And then soon you want only brown rice. And it's taken me years to get that in my own home. I understand it. And that's what everyone should do. They shouldn't just feel I have to stop white rice because that's what she's telling me. Just start tweaking it, making gradual changes. Let the taste buds adjust as well.
Right.
Because we have grown up with certain foods. I grew up in an Indian home eating just white rice. And to go from white to brown was a big jump.
Right.
So with my children as well, I thought rather than forcing it to them, let me just try it. And they now do not want the white themselves, the white rice. They just say, can we just have the brown rice?
So long.
But it's not because it's been forced onto them. It's because they have adjusted to it and they see the benefits to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then having your treats as well. You can have donuts if you want to, but not every day. Decide how many treats. So you can have donuts or cookies or cakes, whatever you want, but decide what treats am I going to be having and have those. But don't let a treat become something you're having more than your healthy meals.
Right.
There's always balance in what we're doing.
You talked about your plate, as in, your plate of food or your portion. So what you taught me was to make sure that my plate was mostly vegetables.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my grains or whatever, complex carbohydrates. And then, of course, the protein. Does that still hold true?
It definitely does. And I think we've seen more in the last few years where there's an emphasis on having more vegetables. And it's not about saying you have to be vegetarian, but we should be including more vegetables in our diet. Unfortunately, there is no lobby out there promoting eat more vegetables, eat more carrots or tomatoes or broccoli. We see so much advertising for have more protein because somebody is selling a protein shake.
Right.
You will see somebody selling something for grains, but vegetables are actually very important to include. And I think I'm like this, this proponent of include more vegetables first, because if you're including vegetables, you don't need to worry about calories. You don't need to really be worrying about, how do I prepare my plate? Just make sure you have lots of vegetables, a variety of vegetables as well, and find vegetables that you like. So for instance, you may not like cauliflower, but if you don't like cauliflower and you like peppers or carrots, have those, or have mushrooms. Have the vegetables that grow where you live. Don't feel that you've got to buy something that's expensive as well. We have to really take the cost of food into account as well. And for instance, when we lived in Singapore, kale was so expensive when living in Singapore. So rather than buying kale, if it's expensive where you are, Why not use spinach or use the local greens?
Yeah,
For
the bok
instance,
choy.
pak choy or kailan, use the local vegetables that you have. Or if you're watching this and you're in Africa, use the local greens over there as well. So use local vegetables and
Yes.
cook them the way you like to eat them. Use your herbs, use your spices, make them taste good so you want to eat them. It should not be bland, it should not be just boiled. And sometimes people don't like cold vegetables as well. And we're coming into autumn and winter and we don't feel like having, so we don't have to have raw vegetables. If you don't want salads, have your vegetables cooked. There's no harm in having, cooked vegetables. You could make soups. You could be making stir fries. You could add your vegetables when making a stew or a casserole or your curries, anything. So there's so many ways of having your vegetables. So I know talked lots about vegetables because I'm the veggie warrior here. But a lot of vegetables are not enough on their own. They're an important part of our diet.
Yeah.
But we do need to make sure we're getting protein as well. And, there's so many different sources of protein. Now, I want to also say that our vegetables are also a good source of protein. Sometimes we think I need to be eating chicken or fish or eggs to get my protein. But do you know broccoli and peas and, even spinach? These vegetables have got protein in them. So, your veggies will also have protein in them, but include other foods like chicken or fish or getting beans or lentils and tofu, whatever, you like the taste of. Get a mix of different protein foods and then make sure you also have some whole grains because you don't want to feel hungry. Our grains keep us feeling full. And if we just think, I'm not going to have any grain at all, like if you give up all the grains altogether, you end up feeling hungry. And guess what happens when you end up feeling hungry? You're craving, you're tired, you binge. You're constantly looking for something to eat.
Yeah.
And that's me. I used to feel like if anybody's watching this and you think, oh, she just eats this way. I didn't always eat this way. I thought I was healthy, but I was constantly eating so many snacks, and it was because I didn't have a balanced plate. So learning and education is very important because if you don't feel full, you will want something soon after lunch or dinner. Snacking is not a bad thing, but if you're constantly snacking, that means you're not eating a satisfying meal.
Yeah.
So it's about balance. So it still holds true that we need to make sure we've got a balanced plate with our grains, our protein, and our vegetables there. But then also making sure we get some fruits in as well. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so good. So when it comes to carbohydrates, I want to talk about carbohydrates because it is such a big thing on the health scene.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about it. Some say don't eat any carbohydrates in terms of your grains and starches, and some say, oh, you can eat a little bit, and some say, it's fine, it gives you all the strength, especially eat your heart out. What do you have to say about that?
I think we can definitely have small amounts, not 2 tablespoons. There is a space on the plate for our grains, but depends on what you're doing as well. So if you are exercising, if you're active, you definitely need more grains. If you're not as active, you do need some grains, but learn how much you need to be having, and it will vary from person to person. But when you're preparing your plate, don't just pile it up with the grains. And I'll give you some real examples now. So we're looking at different cultures. We all have our equivalent of chicken rice. You will have your jollof with chicken. In the Indian diet, we have our chicken biryani. And then, let's say in Asia, they'll have their chicken rice as well. So just, using a few different examples. What we'd end up doing is we just put the chicken rice, whatever way it's cooked, on our plate. But most of it tends to be rice. And then we look at it because we've piled the plate up and we say, well, there isn't much space on it for the vegetables. So let's just make sure we put the right amount so we can actually even put some vegetables on the plate as well. So we don't need to stop them, but just make sure we're leaving space for other food groups as well on the plate.
Absolutely. And how about calorie counting? Okay.
Calorie counting.
Counting.
Yeah, calorie counting is interesting because I have worked with clients who used to calorie count, and
Okay.
I do not know the calories in different foods. So when I started working with them, it was really interesting to see, because they've been used to calorie counting, their mindset was so restricted in the sense, okay, how many calories can I have for today? And calories are important because we've got to be mindful that we're not overeating, because if you end up eating more than you're burning, you are going to put on weight. But not all calories are created equally.
Right.
When people begin to calorie count, it really affects the mind, because if you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to have 1,000 calories a day, or whatever number you've decided on to go into a bit of a calorie deficiency, what you begin to then do is you say, okay, these are the number of calories I'm having. Then you're looking for recipes to give you those calories. Then you're inputting it into an app. Then you look at what you've got left for the day. And it begins to affect your relationship with food. Food is no longer something you enjoy. It's not nourishing you. It becomes this number in an app that tells you how much more you can have.
Yeah.
And a calorie is not, the calories we find, for instance, in a soft drink versus a smoothie are very different, because the smoothie is going to be giving you vitamins, it's going to be giving you your antioxidants, it's going to be giving you your fiber, because in my smoothie we even put oats into making it. Yeah, it'll be giving you your electrolytes because we are adding in coconut water. So the calories in a smoothie is very different to calories that are in a soft drink. And with the calorie counting, people then feel, okay, if I've got just these many calories, let me buy some low calorie foods. So if we start buying low calorie foods, what do they have in them? Artificial sweetness.
Right.
When we have artificial sweetness, the reason why they do not have a calorie attached to them is because these are not real foods. Really, if you look at them, these are chemicals at the end of the day. They're not a real food. So when you have these low calorie foods, what you're trying to trick your brain in saying is, okay, I'm having something sweet. I'm going to have this food or drink, and then the brain thinks, okay, I've had something sweet, but you never quite get satisfied because you haven't had that sugar that you wanted, right? So keep wanting more. Rather than having these artificial foods, have the real food, just have less of it as well. So calorie counting is useful if you're going into calorie deficiency, but it's not something that I would encourage anyone to do, because I don't want you to be stuck on a number. I don't want you to feel, okay, let me have low calorie foods. Instead, let's think about eating mindfully. Let's think about the quantity and the quality, more importantly, the quality of the foods you're eating, rather than thinking about having these artificial foods. And let's have foods that are closest to nature as well, like, where they come from.
Yeah.
And when we count calories, we begin to almost box ourselves. But when we eat mindfully and we eat intuitively, you can eat at home like this. You can eat in a restaurant. You could eat like this on holiday. You don't feel that you have to now be limited only to eating this way. I really encourage everyone just to look at your plate and see, do I have a variety of different foods on my plate as well? Yeah. So calorie counting, it helps some people, but long term, I think it just affects your mind in a negative way. You don't have a very healthy relationship with food. And I want you to, I just want everyone to think, I love eating, I enjoy eating. Yes, I can have, whether it's a pizza or whether it's, having some chips even. But along with that, let me have something healthy. So have your treats, but then don't get stuck on these numbers as well. So yes, have a slice of pizza, but don't let your whole meal become the pizza.
Become the pizza. If in doubt, eat more vegetables.
Absolutely. That's it. It's as simple as
You
that.
taught me well. So we've touched on carbohydrates. We've touched on calorie counting. We've spoken about protein as well. Talk to us about sugar and dairy, because those are the other two biggies.
Yeah. So sugar is really interesting, Sylvia, because we do need sugar. We don't need to think we've got to avoid sugar. and we need sugar to give us energy. We all naturally crave some amounts of sugar, and that's fine to want sugar, but it's the type of sugar we're having as well.
Yes.
And I wanted to share a few examples with you if I can, because I
Yes.
want to show you refined sugars and natural sugars. Now, what we should try and do is to avoid or reduce. If avoiding is too difficult, just try reducing first the sugars you're having, the refined sugars. So if you add, for instance, 1 teaspoon of sugar in your tea, anybody watching this, please just try this. If you add 1 teaspoon of sugar in your tea, and let's say you're having 2 cups of tea a day, can you reduce it down to just half a teaspoon, which means in one day you're cutting down 1 teaspoon in a day. So try and first do that, where you just cut your sugar down. Then instead of white sugar, could you have raw sugar? That will have more minerals in it as well. So listen, I'm not telling you to cut the sugar. I'm just saying, let's tweak it and keep cutting it down slowly and slowly. Let's make it doable and manageable. And then let's think about where there are hidden sugars, because there are so many hidden sugars in our foods. We don't even realize. We sometimes think, okay, it's chocolate bars. And I want to share some examples. Okay, so
Yes.
I've got here a Kit Kat. So Kit Kat, I grew up, I loved Kit Kats. But Kit Kats, we all know, are going to be high in sugar. So this Kit Kat, and I suggest when you look at foods, please always read the label per 100 grams, because when you read it per 100 grams, it's a better comparison, because portion sizes is not always the same when you look at different foods. So when I look at this Kit Kat, the sugar it has per 100 grams is 46.6. And now I know this has got the refined sugars in it. It's not, the healthy sort of natural sugars that are going into it. But then at the same time, we can have other snacks which are sold in health stores, and people think I'm being really healthy. And they are good foods to have. They are natural foods to have, because they are made with real ingredients, which I said, we should try and be having more. But we shouldn't be having too much even of these foods, because if we end up having too much of them, they will also have the same effect. They will also cause us to gain weight, which doesn't improve our health as well. So I wanted to share something which we have here, and maybe you've seen it, Sylvia, while you were living here. So there's many different brands, but I'm just using this one as an example, because it's a good example to use against the Kit Kat. So this is Deliciously Ella, and it says at the front, it says it's gluten-free and it's vegan friendly, and it says it's got cacao, almonds in it, and it's made with real ingredients. Sorry. So if I look at the ingredients that have gone into it, it's got dates 60%, almonds 22%, cacao, almond butter, and coconut oil. So these are all really good ingredients. But how much sugar would you think there is in this? Do you want to guess? Per 100 grams?
More than the Kit Kat because of
No.
a lot less.
So slightly less. So this has got 41.7 grams per 100. So this is 41.7, and then this one is 46.6. Now, most of us would think that the Kit Kat is going to be a lot higher than this. But there it is higher, but not that much higher than this. And yes, these are real natural foods that have gone into making them. But we don't want to be even having too much of these. Instead of this, I would say have some fresh fruit, have some nuts. Don't have too much of the dried fruit, because too much of the dried fruit means we're increasing the sugar we're having in our diet as well. So it's really beginning to look at the labels to understand what the sugars are, what the sources are. And yes, I do have the Deliciously Ella, but it wouldn't be something I have very often. I would take it with me if I'm out and about. If it's something easy, I can just have in my bag. But again, don't have too many of these as well. And then I wanted to share, our juices, because we often have juices because we think juices are healthy for us. We talked about immunity, and we know, they're a good source of vitamin C. So this little bottle here is actually meant to be 2 portion sizes. 2 portion sizes. Okay. Most of us would have this in one portion. right? So because it's so how much does it have? So it says each portion is 150 milliliters, and this here is 300 milliliters. All right.
Okay.
So when we look at this per per 150 milliliters, it's got 13 grams of sugar. So if we had the full one, if we had all this, that's 26 grams of sugar, which is quite a lot of sugar just in a
Yes.
juice. Instead of having the juices, have the juices occasionally. I'm not saying don't have them. Juices are good, but please, more vegetable juices, a little bit of fruit in them. I'm throwing in the vegetables again, have a little bit of fruit in your vegetable juice, but instead eat your oranges, eat your fruits, because when you eat the fruit, you get the fiber with it.
Right.
When you eat the fruit, whether it is an orange or a pineapple or whatever fruit we're eating, we have to peel it, we have to cut it, we have to chew it. So we're really slowly enjoying it. If I was to have the juice, I just open it, I gulp it down within a few minutes. This actually requires me to slow down, and it almost forces me to eat more mindfully as well. And eating mindfully just means, you are connecting also with your body, you're connecting with the foods you're eating. We really smell the food, we enjoy the flavors of the food as well that we're having. So sugars, we need them, but let's get them from our fruits. Let's get them from, a little bit of dried fruit. Let's get them from our vegetables. Also, will have some sugar in them. Our grains will have them. And also, you can have natural sugars as well. So, I talked about having raw sugar. You could be having honey. I have lots of recipes. If anybody wants, you can always go and check those out. But, use natural sugars like honey. You could be using maple syrup. So use natural sugars. But again, even though it's natural sugar, it doesn't mean you can have as much as you want to, just small amounts of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I mentioned sugar, and I think the last thing we talked
Dairy.
about is dairy.
Sorry. Okay, so dairy is interesting. It's very controversial. Some people say you've got to have it for calcium, whereas others will say, we've got to avoid it. And I think with dairy, we've got to decide what works best for our own unique bodies. Now, some of us don't have, the ability to break it down, to digest it. So if we're intolerant to dairy, or if we have allergies to it, your body's telling you it's not for you. So then there's no point in having these lactose-free milks. If your body's just telling you, you can get the calcium from other food sources as well. You could get it from your green vegetables. You could get it from, even canned salmon or canned fish with the bones in it. Those are very high, the edible bones in it. That's quite high in calcium. So dairy really will vary from person to person, and we have to think about, do we really need the amounts that we're being told that we need to have? There are some parts of the world where they don't have much, but it shows that they don't have a very high, fracture rate for bones as well. So it's putting things in balance and saying, okay, we need calcium, but we also need other foods as well for our bone health as well. So it's really like something we put a perspective to, rather than thinking I've just got to have it. With calcium, if you're having the dairy-free milk, let's say, if you can't have dairy, if you're having the dairy-free milk, can you make sure it's been fortified with calcium? Can you make sure it's been fortified with, vitamin D as well, if you're not getting vitamin D in your diet? So it's important to look at what your overall diet is, and then try and see what you need as well.
Right. Awesome. Sujata, I wanted you to talk to us about slim fat. So there are people that eat whatever they want to.
Yeah.
Those people I don't like very much. They eat whatever they want and never put on any weight.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? Are they at liberty to eat anything just because they're not putting on the weight?
I actually think we've got to be really more mindful of what we're eating, because eating whatever we want to. It's not just about the weight. It's also about our immunity. It's about our health. It's about aging, longevity. So if somebody's eating anything and everything and they're not putting on the weight, I would say to them, think about where you want to be long term, not just now in your 30s or your 40s, but where do you want to be in your 60s or 70s? Do you want to be having a higher risk of diabetes, or do you want to be at a higher risk of certain cancers even, or do you want to be at a higher risk of heart disease? But we've also got to look at the internal, because we may not be overweight where it's showing visibly, but some people will. And I've worked with clients who do not appear fat, but their body fat is much higher, and that's quite dangerous actually, because it's that fat that's sitting around the organs.
Awesome. And can we very quickly talk about, you mentioned obesity. How do we've heard words like BMI, hip to waist ratio being thrown about. How do we measure sort of obesity as far as, BMI and waist to hip ratio is concerned?
So there's many different measures, and the BMI is very useful because it's looking at your weight and your height. There's a ratio it's looking at for that. The NHS website is very good. If anyone's watching it and you don't know what your BMI is, please, after watching it, just make a note and just go and Google BMI NHS or any other website you want. But I like the NHS one, Sylvia, because they ask you for your ethnicity, actually, because certain ethnicities, like for an Indian one, our BMI should be slightly lower, it says. When I'm looking at it for clients, it would say it should be slightly lower than for the average, let's say, Caucasian person as well. So it will vary from ethnicity. It is influencing your risk for certain diseases. And I guess the NHS has got that data that they've put into their database when they're looking at that. And it would be looking at, is your BMI on average? It's like if your BMI is above 25 and up to 29.9, you're overweight. And if it goes above 30, then you're in the obese category. And if you look at the waist to hip ratio, what we want to make sure is that the waist is always like slimmer than the hips. So it's apple. If you're an apple, you'll hear of people referring to themselves as saying, I'm more apple-shaped or pear-shaped. The apple-shaped is when you have got more weight around your belly. And if you've got more weight around your belly, that does actually mean that you are now at a higher risk of certain diseases. So you've got to work at making sure your waist to hip ratio is also reduced, where it's in the healthy range. Being overweight or obese, and if you are, you're sharing the website, thank you so much for that. But if you are at a higher risk, one thing to do is to begin to reduce the risk, because your risk of so many diseases increases. Why take that chance? Why even take that chance? We're so careful in so many things that we do in our lives. COVID is teaching us that, we're washing our hands, we're covering our face. But if it's putting you at a different risk category for diabetes or heart attack, and you are overweight or obese, just make these slight changes. I've shared a few things today. Just start making these few changes to reduce your risk for it.
Absolutely. And Sujata, we can't talk about our health journeys without touching on fitness.
Yeah.
I know food is 80% of that in terms of trying to be healthy or trying to lose weight or whatever. How important is fitness in all of this?
Fitness is so important, and I think we've got to be thinking not about just what's going on our plate, but what we're doing in the day as well. Are we active during the day? Are we walking? And also, are we exercising a few times a week? Sometimes people have this misconception and they'll think, I'm exercising, I've got a personal trainer, I'm exercising 3 times a week. And because I'm exercising 3 times a week, I'm fine, I don't need to do anything else. You're very mistaken. You need to keep being active through the day. You've got to walk. And please don't say, I walk around in the house. That's not enough. You've got to do a little bit more than that. I want us to think about simple things we can do. I know with COVID, people have different risk factors. So if you can't go outside the house to walk, can you just keep walking in your living room? Keep it at a little bit of a faster pace, but can you walk either in your living room or up and down your corridor, walk up and down the stairs a little bit as well, and just say, I start with 10 minutes a day of walking, and then I increase it to 15, and then I keep increasing it. And with exercising as well, often people will say, I don't have the time to exercise, I'm so busy. Guess what? We all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all have it. But it depends on how important your health is to you. So whether it's prioritizing your meal planning and preparing, or if it's prioritizing your activity, you've got to do it. You don't want to leave it until you get a diagnosis. So your exercise, your walking, your food, everything's important, but don't just do one thing and leave the other. They need to be done simultaneously.
Right. To see the best results.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So Sujata, what is the one thing that you would say that people are surprised to find out about themselves after you've worked with them?
Yeah, this one is really an interesting one, and I began to see this pattern after having worked with my clients. It's been almost 10 years since I've been coaching now, and what I began to see after they started is they began to realize, I'm actually enjoying it. I can do it. It's not difficult for me. I'm liking it, and it doesn't seem like a diet. So I think that just makes them want to show up and do it, every day, rather than thinking of it as it's this difficult diet that I've got to do. So they just begin to have these habits that they're creating, and it's really about now creating a new routine. Many of us do things because we're habitual. If you come home from work and the first thing you do is you open the fridge and you see the cake, and you see the fruit, and you see the vegetables, and if you feel that the cake is saying, eat me, it's a habit. It's not, because everything else is there as well. Everything else is staring out at you, but you don't see that the fruit and the vegetables saying, eat me. You just see the cake as saying, it's time to eat me.
Right.
It becomes a habit. So what we're doing on a daily basis just becomes a habit. And what we've got to do is to think about just making small little changes, whether it's to the meals or to our activity. And then we begin to think, yeah, I'm actually enjoying it. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
And then you look forward to it. So slowly creating new habits is the best way forward. And that's what my clients say. I can't believe I've created so many habits. I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah. Awesome. And Sujata, talk to us about sleep.
Sleep.
How is it important as far as our health is concerned?
Sleep is important. There are studies that show that if you don't sleep enough, you may get more colds. You may be falling ill more frequently as well. And sleep is something that sometimes people forget because they think I'm too busy. I'm not very good at this myself as well. So, we're all work in progress. I'm the first to put my hand up and say I'm working on my evening routines because it's something that I need to improve as well. Sleep is really, really important because if you don't feel rested, you wake up feeling tired. It's affecting your mood. It's affecting your energy as well.
Yeah.
And when you wake up feeling tired, you want to have something quick. You want to have something to boost you, to give you the energy. So then you end up having something with sugar in it. You might have some, let's say cereals which are high in sugar, or you end up putting a lot of jam on your toast because you're like, I need an instant sugar rush,
Right.
or you're having tea and coffee with sugar to give you the energy to keep you going through the day. And these are these stimulants that you feel are keeping you going, but they're not your true energy. So if you just try and improve your sleep, you'll find that your energy improves, your cravings also are not as intense because you're eating better. So things begin to improve, and people need different amounts of sleep. Some people, may say, okay, I need 7 hours or I need 8 hours, but we've got to make sure that we're getting enough. And again, with sleep, it can become a habit where you just say, I'm used to having very little sleep, but maybe you've just made yourself that way. Maybe try and see if you can change it and give your body rest. It doesn't mean you have to force yourself to sleep, but can you just lie in bed for a little bit longer, not feel that you've got to get up and do too much as well. So rest and relaxation is very important for our health, as well as being active. We've got to take that time for rest and relaxation.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Sujata, I want to very quickly talk about, because you're a health coach, but you're a cancer coach as well.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on that very quickly. We're running out of time, and I feel like there's so many things that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a cancer coach? Can you break it down for us? What does that mean?
So I'll share why I became a cancer coach as well. I have seen family, I've seen friends, I was seeing people being diagnosed with cancer, and that C word, it is a scary diagnosis. It is something that puts so much fear in people. Sometimes people are even afraid to talk about it with family and friends, and it's something that they're keeping to themselves. So it was something that I decided, I wanted to help people with. And as a cancer coach, what I'm doing is just guiding them on how to improve their diet, what foods to have more of, what foods to reduce, how to improve their lifestyle as well, that help to actually reduce the risk of cancer. When you've been diagnosed with cancer, many people do what I did, trying to get healthy, is they go onto the internet and they'll Google. There is so much out there. Some of it is not even true. Some of it is very scary because, I've heard of people who will go on some extreme fasts, even where they just don't eat much because they've read somewhere or somebody's told them that if you don't eat anything, it will kill the cancer cells. So people will try things which leave them feeling more depleted. So as a cancer coach, I just guide them on making changes a step at a time, taking the overwhelm away. And they're doing this alongside their treatment plans, that they're doing, whether it's chemo, radiation, or getting surgery. They're doing this alongside that, and it's complementing the treatment that they're getting.
Excellent, excellent. And how important is it? I mean, we have a few weeks ago, I had us talking in October. We spoke about, it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we spoke a lot about that. How important is it for people to know that once you're diagnosed, that it's not a death sentence?
Yeah, it was a very interesting interview, Sylvia. I watched it. It was very, very empowering, and I think it's as you in your interview it was shared. It's very important that when you've got diagnosed, you actually take charge of your health. You take an important role in your recovery as well. Yes, your doctors are going to be the ones giving you the treatment, but at the same time, what can you do to improve your own health as well? I think that's something that people are forgetting. Sometimes they just take that backseat and they think nothing's going to help me, and they read all this stuff from the internet, looking at the percentage of survival rate. So I think stay away from things that are not going to help you, but start looking at what will help you. I encourage trying to take ownership of your health in what way you can. There are some things that are out of our own control that the doctors will look after, but what we can control is what we're eating, our lifestyle, our sleep as well. And also being positive is very important. Connecting, community, and also faith is very important, whether it is through religion or spirituality. The faith also is a very big part of my coaching program, where it's this belief and this desire to want to continue as well, to look forward to the next day.
Absolutely. Sujata, there's something that I want to settle today. We have spoken about eating a lot of vegetables. You have spoken about eating foods that are very close to its original source.
Yeah.
You know my one thing that I love. Chocolates. Since chocolate is from cocoa, can we then say that chocolate is a vegetable? I think that is a safe deduction.
You're not gonna. You can have chocolate coated vegetables. Chocolate coated carrots, tomatoes. We could do that. I know chocolate covered berries, but we could try with veggies as well. Good one.
This is my deduction, and I'm sticking with it.
As long as there's a veggie underneath it, that's fine.
Right. Right.
But dark chocolate is good. I love everyday dark chocolate. And, so we don't have to have like 85% dark chocolate. If you don't like dark chocolate, have 60%, It doesn't need to be 85%. But yeah, chocolate is allowed, but not the milk chocolate, not the one that's too high in sugar. That's
that's the one I like. The vegetable one.
The vegetable one. That's why the vegetable needs to be underneath it.
Yeah, exactly. Sujata, it has been such a pleasure to have you. You have been amazing. You have given us so much to take away. Where can people find you online?
So you can go to, if you wanted to find me, my website is where you can find lots of recipes and blogs. It's just sujatadin.com. You can always just go to my website, but I'm also sharing lots on Facebook. So on Facebook, it's Wellness with Sujata. And then on Instagram, I'm also quite active, and I share in my stories, not just what I'm doing, because I think, I don't want to share this is what I eat, but I want to share what my clients are eating, what my members are eating as well. I feel that's inspiring others to make the changes as well. So, there's lots that I'm sharing, and, please come and join me, follow me, and say hello. If you've watched the interview, come and say hi to me as well. I'd love to get any feedback from you.
Excellent. And I think there's a freebie that you had for our viewers today.
Yes, I do have. I do have a freebie.
We love freebies.
You love freebies. Okay, I have this amazing freebie, and it's a 5-day course where if you go onto my website and you go onto the top, it'll say free course. Just click on that, and what you'll get every day is a short video, just with a little bit of inspiration and some tips to get you doing something on a daily basis. And it's just using these tips then and applying them and being consistent, because it's with consistency we create habits and we see results as well. So that's where you can get the freebie. And lots of recipes, lots and lots of recipes. I love sharing recipes. So you'll find lots in the freebie, but also on my website and Facebook.
Excellent. Viewers, you heard that. She has loads to get you started. And if you want to sign up as a client as well, like I said, I am her client. And when you see me looking all good, it's because I'm listening to what she's saying. And I honestly cannot recommend her enough. But otherwise,
thank you so much, Sylvia.
Otherwise, she has got so much to get you started on her website. Sujata, it has been an amazing time. I have relearned so much, and I'm going to make certain changes. And I just want to say, against all odds family, let's show Sujata some love. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And the pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much, Sylvia.
Thank you.